Welcome to Somewhere and Elsewhere, Coastal Carolina Arts Podcast by Shoresides. I'm Kevin Levi Green. Coming up next, a Somewhere and Elsewhere special where we uncover stories from artists across the coastal region.
Hi, I'm Elena Hernandez, and I'm a reporter for Shoresides. When you think of cities with thriving artistic communities, odds are you might picture those big studio lots in Hollywood and famed musical stomping grounds in Nashville. But I'm going to be bringing you stories from a lesser-known artistic hub, Wilmington, North Carolina. Today, we'll hear about what it's like to find your footing as a woman in filmmaking and the obstacles that many face. And here's the story of one person's journey navigating those challenges.
My name is Erica O'Brien. I am 29, and I work in post-production as an editor and a media manager. In the film industry, I feel like men are often centered in our kind of cultural narrative as a story that everyone can relate to. And I think that there's still a lot of work to be done in terms of who we're centering in stories. There's a mythology that women's stories won't sell theater tickets or won't sell subscriptions. And I think that what we've seen in those past few years was the push to tell those stories, and also that telling those stories shouldn't necessarily be motivated by a profit margin. You know, that it's important to tell these stories regardless, because we make up society, we make up the culture. We should be equally represented in that and also have the opportunity to see ourselves represented. You know, I can think back to my own childhood, and, you know, as a white woman, I had someone to look at and see myself in. You know, that visual representation was there in a way that it's not for women of color. You know, it's very tied into the history of this country's culture and what it finds important. You know, I think that there are ideas about the kind of person, the kind of woman who can fill these spaces. And thinking of something like a specific moment, it seems very small anecdotally, but when I was very first starting out in post-production, I had an encounter with a manager of a project who told me that I was mousy. I think that I internalized that sort of her, and it was from a woman. You know, I sort of internalized her assessment of me as something that was negative because it had kind of that connotation to it. I felt in that moment that comment was incredibly gendered, but also I think that it impacted my ability to see myself as someone who is worthy of being in this space. I think it's taken many years of constant work to kind of accept that I'm good at what I do, and it's okay for me to be who I am without having to fit into a specific mold, is something that I'm sure a lot of women in the film industry are familiar with, or at least know someone who's familiar with, is, you know, having to deal with sexual harassment and not feeling like they could say anything. You know, I've definitely had more than one situation where, you know, I would have liked to say, you can't speak to me that way, or I've been afraid to tell other people that I've been spoken to or touched in ways that I was not comfortable with. But there's this, you know, fear that what if that person tells some other dude who was going to offer me work not to? And I think that fear and that silencing is still very prevalent. I felt within the film community in Wilmington more freedom to speak and more opportunity to be a creative woman. One of my best friends, Delaney Gillis, works as a special effects artist on set, and we really wanted to create a space for women creatives in Wilmington that acted as a network for women creatives. So I'm so happy to be a part of it with Delaney and all the women The women in Wilmington want to encourage that artistic development. You know, like women in this industry want to support each other.
You've been listening to Somewhere and Elsewhere, a Coastal Carolina arts podcast from Working Narratives and Shoresides. Shoresides is a local journalism project serving the Coastal Carolinas and beyond. Know of a Coastal Carolina artist we should be covering? Contact us at info@shoresides.org. I'm Kevin Levi Green. Thank you for listening.